Jake Morrison walked through the long metal hallway of the Zenthari Universal Academy. His shoes made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. The massive space station was home to thousands of students from all over the galaxy. Jake had been teaching here for 3 years now, and he still felt amazed every time he saw the view from the windows. Stars stretched out in all directions, and the beautiful blue planet Kepler 442b spun slowly below them. Jake was one of only 12 humans working at the academy. Most of the teachers were from the older alien species that had been part of the Galactic Coalition for hundreds of years. Humans were still new to space travel, and many aliens were curious about them. Some were also a little afraid, though they tried to hide it. He reached his classroom and pressed his hand against the door scanner. The metal door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, his students were already waiting for him. Jake taught advanced planetary studies, and his class was always full. Today was special because it was the last day of presentations for their final project. The classroom was designed to fit many different types of alien bodies. There were regular chairs for species that sat like humans, but also special platforms, tanks filled with liquid, and even hanging spaces for flying creatures. The walls were made of a special material that could show any image or video in 3 dimensions. Jake looked around at his students. In the front row sat Zixtel, one of his best students. She was from the Vortex species, and her body was made of living crystal. She was about as tall as Jake, but much thinner. Her crystal skin was pale blue and made soft musical sounds when she moved. Her face was almost human-like, but her eyes were much larger and completely black. Next to Zixtel was Gloop, a Hydroxian student. His body was like thick blue jelly that could change shape. He sat in a special chair that could hold his liquid form. Gloop was very smart, but he was also very nervous. His body would shake and change color when he was worried or excited. In the back of the room, the clicking twins Teak and Tack were taking notes. They were from an insect-like species called the Zephyrians. Each twin had 4 arms and could write with all of them at the same time. Their bodies were covered in hard, shiny shells that were dark green. They made soft clicking sounds when they talked to each other. There were also 3 human students in the class. Amy Chen was from California and was studying alien biology. She was 22 years old with long black hair and always wore a bright smile. Steve Rodriguez was from Texas and wanted to become a space pilot. He had short brown hair and was always making jokes to help everyone relax. Lisa Park was Jake's teaching assistant. She was from New York and was working on her graduate degree in alien cultures. Jake set his tablet on the desk and looked at his students. Good morning, everyone. Today we will finish our final presentations about your homeworlds. Who wants to go first? Zixtel raised one of her crystal hands. The movement made a sound like wind chimes. I would like to present about Vorthak Prime, Professor Morrison. Jake nodded and activated the wall display. Please go ahead, Zixtel. Zixtel stood up and walked to the front of the class. Her crystal body caught the light from the walls and made small rainbows dance around the room. She touched the control panel, and the display showed a beautiful planet covered in crystal forests. Vorthak Prime is a world of harmony, Zixtel began. Her voice was musical, like someone singing softly. Our planet has perfect weather all year round. The temperature never changes more than a few degrees. We have no storms, no earthquakes, and no dangerous animals. The display showed tall crystal trees that looked like they were made of colored glass. They swayed gently in a soft breeze. Strange crystal flowers grew at the base of the trees, and they glowed with their own light. The crystal forests sing to us, Zixtel continued. When the wind blows through them, they make beautiful music. Sometimes we have resonance storms, but these are not dangerous. They just make the music louder and more beautiful. All life on our planet lives in peace together. Jake noticed that. Amy, Steve, and Lisa were looking at each other with strange expressions. Amy raised her hand. Yes, Amy, Jake said. Zixtel, you said you have no dangerous animals at all? What about predators? Zixtel's crystal face showed confusion. Predators? I do not understand this word, Steve spoke up. Animals that hunt and eat other animals? Oh, Zixtel said, her crystal body making a sad sound. We do not have such things. All our animals eat the crystal fruits or the energy from our suns. No creature hurts another creature on Vorthik Prime. Lisa wrote something on her tablet. Jake could see she was taking notes, but she looked troubled. Thank you, Zixtel, Jake said. That was very informative. Gloop, would you like to go next? Gloop's blue jelly body rippled as he moved to the front of the class. He was nervous, and his body kept changing from blue to purple and back again. He activated the display, and it showed a world covered completely in water. Hydroxia is an ocean world, Gloop said in his bubbling voice. We have no land at all, just endless warm seas. The water is always the perfect temperature for swimming. We have gentle currents that carry food to all parts of the planet. The display showed underwater cities made of coral and strange plants. Creatures that looked like jellyfish and sea anemones moved slowly through the water. Everything looked peaceful and calm. Our biggest storms are just gentle waves, Gloop continued. The water moves a little faster, but it never hurts anyone. We have no predators either. All creatures on Hydroxia filter tiny plants from the water for food. The ocean provides everything we need. Amy raised her hand again. Gloop, what happens if there is not enough food for everyone? Gloop's body turned a confused purple color. Not enough food? I do not understand. The ocean always provides enough food for everyone. This has never been a problem. Steve looked amazed. Never? In all of your planet's history? Never, Gloop confirmed. Why would there not be enough food? Jake was starting to understand why the human students looked so concerned. He had read about many alien worlds, but he was beginning to see a pattern. Teak and Tack, would you like to present next? Jake asked. The twin insects clicked excitedly and moved to the front of the class. They activated the display together, showing a world covered in tall grass and gentle hills. Zephyria is a world of endless meadows, Teak said in his high, musical voice. The grass grows everywhere, and the weather is always mild, Tack added. We have soft rains that fall exactly when the plants need water, Teak continued, and gentle breezes that carry the sweet smell of flowers, Tack finished. The display showed creatures that looked like butterflies and moths flying between tall grass. Everything moved slowly and peacefully. Our people live in harmony with all the creatures of our world, both twins said together. We eat the nectar from flowers, and the flowers are happy to share with us. No one fights, and no one is ever hungry. Jake looked at his human students. Amy was frowning and writing notes quickly. Steve was shaking his head in disbelief. Lisa was staring at the display with wide eyes. Thank you, Teak and Tack, Jake said. That was very interesting. He looked around the classroom. There were still more alien students who needed to present, but Jake was starting to see the problem. Every alien world was described as a paradise. Perfect weather, no danger, plenty of food, and no conflict. Jake pulled up his tablet and looked at Earth's classification in the Galactic Coalition database. There it was, marked in red letters, Class 12 Death World, Extreme Caution Required. He looked at his human students again. They were all from Earth, and they all looked completely normal and healthy. But according to the database, they came from one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Jake realized that his alien students had no idea what they were about to learn about humanity and Earth. They lived in a galaxy full of peaceful, safe worlds. They had never experienced real danger or hardship, but humans were different. Humans came from a world that the rest of the galaxy considered uninhabitable. And somehow, humans had not just survived there, but had thrived and eventually reached the stars. Jake looked at the clock on the wall. There were still 10 minutes left in class, and he had a feeling that the next few presentations were going to be very eye-opening for everyone involved. The next class session started differently than usual. Jake Morrison noticed that his alien students were sitting closer together than normal. They kept looking at the human students with strange expressions. Zixtel's crystal body was making soft, worried sounds. Gloop was changing colors from blue to green every few seconds. Even the usually cheerful clicking twins seemed nervous. Jake set his teaching materials on the desk and looked around the room. Good morning, everyone. Today, we will continue with our final presentations. But first, does anyone have questions about what we discussed last time? Zixtel raised her crystal hand slowly. The musical sound it made was quieter than usual. Professor Morrison, I have been thinking about something since our last class. What is it, Zixtel? She stood up, her crystal body catching the light. From the walls, I looked up information about Earth in the Coalition database. It says that Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. This is the highest danger rating possible. The other alien students nodded. Jake could see they had all been doing research. The database says that most Coalition species would die within hours of landing on Earth, Gloop added, his jelly body, rippling with worry. It says the planet is covered in deadly poison that you call water. It says the air contains dangerous gases. It says the temperature changes can kill most life forms. Tick clicked rapidly to his brother Tack, then looked at Jake. Professor Morrison, if Earth is so dangerous, how do humans live there? Do you live in special protected cities? Jake looked at his human students. Amy, Steve, and Lisa were all trying not to smile. Jake realized this was going to be a very interesting conversation. Well, Jake said, let me show you some basic information about Earth, and then we can discuss it. He activated the wall display and pulled up Earth's environmental data. Numbers and charts filled the screen. The alien students stared at the information in shock. Earth's temperature ranges from minus 89 degrees Celsius to plus 58 degrees Celsius, Jake began. That is a difference of 147 degrees. Zixtel made a sound like breaking glass. But that would kill us instantly. On Vorthak Prime, our temperature never changes more than 5 degrees. Earth is 71% covered by water, Jake continued. Most of this water contains salt, which is poisonous to many Coalition species. Gloop's body turned bright yellow with fear. Poisonous water covering most of the planet? How do you survive? And humans actually drink this water? Asked Quen, a feathered student from the avian species. She had joined the conversation late, but her bright green feathers were standing up in alarm. Amy Chun laughed. The sound made several alien students jump in surprise. Oh no, we do not drink salt water, but we do swim in it for fun. For fun? Zixtel whispered. Steve Rodriguez grinned. Yeah, millions of humans go to the beach every year to play in the ocean. We surf on the waves, we dive underwater, we build sand castles. But the database says Earth's oceans contain deadly predators, Tack said, clicking nervously. Well, yes, Lisa Park said calmly. There are sharks, jellyfish, sea snakes, and lots of other dangerous creatures in the ocean. And you swim with them? Gloop asked, his body now bright orange with terror. Sometimes, Amy said. Some people even go cage diving to get closer to great white sharks. They get in a metal cage and lower it into the water where the sharks live. They do this on purpose? Quen asked, her feathers now completely standing up. For fun, Steve. Confirmed. Jake pulled up more data on the display. Earth also experiences extreme weather events. We have hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour. We have tornadoes that can destroy entire cities. We have lightning storms, blizzards, floods, and droughts. The alien students were completely silent. They stared at the images of Earth's storms with the same expression humans might have when looking at pictures of hell. Surely humans live in underground bunkers to hide from these storms? Zixtel asked hopefully. Actually, Lisa said, many humans live in areas where these storms happen regularly. I grew up in Florida, which gets hit by hurricanes almost every year. I am from Texas, Steve added. We get tornadoes there. Some people actually chase tornadoes in cars to get closer to them and take pictures. They chase the deadly storms? Tick asked. For fun, Steve said again. Jake decided to show them more information. He pulled up data about Earth's geological activity. Earth's surface is not stable, he explained. The ground moves and shifts constantly. We have earthquakes that can destroy buildings and split the ground open. We have volcanoes that explode and cover everything with hot rock and ash. The display showed footage of volcanic eruptions and earthquake damage. The alien students watched in horror. The database says some human cities are built on top of earthquake fault lines, Gloop said, his voice shaking. Surely this is a mistake. Amy shook her head. Nope, San Francisco is built right on top of a major fault line. The city has been destroyed by earthquakes several times, and people always rebuild it in the same place. Why? Zixtel asked. Why would anyone choose to live in such a dangerous place? Because it is beautiful, Amy said simply, and because it is our home. But you could live somewhere safer, Quen pointed out. Where? Lisa asked. The whole planet has some kind of danger. The places without earthquakes might have hurricanes. The places without hurricanes might have tornadoes. The places without tornadoes might have blizzards or floods or droughts. So there is nowhere safe on Earth? Tak asked. Not really, Steve said. But we have learned to live with the dangers. Jake pulled up more information. Earth also has many dangerous animals. We have large predators like lions, tigers, bears, and wolves. We have venomous snakes and spiders. We have diseases carried by insects. And humans live alongside all of these threats? Zixtel asked. We do more than just live alongside them, Amy said. Some humans study dangerous animals up close. We have people who work with venomous snakes, who track wild bears, who swim. With sharks, my uncle is a storm chaser, Steve added. He drives toward tornadoes and hurricanes to study them. He loves his job. Your family member voluntarily goes toward the deadly storms? Gloop asked, his body now flashing between different colors rapidly. Yes, and he has been doing it for 20 years, Steve said proudly. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of complete bewilderment. Jake could see they were trying to understand how humans could not only survive on Earth, but actually seemed to enjoy the challenges. Professor Morrison, Zixtel said slowly, I must ask you something that troubles me greatly. What is it? According to the Coalition database, every other spacefaring species achieved interstellar travel only after their homeworld became completely peaceful and stable. The database shows that most species had thousands of years of perfect conditions before they developed space technology, Jake nodded. That is correct. But humans achieved spaceflight while Earth was still actively dangerous. The database shows that humans launched their first satellites while dealing with wars, natural disasters, and diseases. How is this possible? This was the question Jake had been expecting. He looked at his human students, and they all nodded. Encouragingly. The answer to that question, Jake said, is going to surprise you even more than what we have already discussed. More surprising than people who swim with predators for fun? Quen asked. Much more surprising, Lisa said. You see, Jake continued, humans did not wait for Earth to become peaceful because we realized something that other species did not have to learn. What did you realize? Zixtel asked. We realized that Earth was never going to become peaceful, Amy said. Our planet was always going to be dangerous, so we had to learn to be stronger than the dangers. Every challenge Earth threw at us made us tougher, Steve added. Every disaster taught us something new. Every dangerous animal taught us to be more careful and more clever. So, instead of waiting for our world to become safe, Jake said, we decided to become the kind of species that could survive anywhere. The alien students sat in stunned silence as they processed this information. Finally, Gloop spoke up, his voice very quiet. Are you saying that humans became strong because Earth is dangerous? Exactly, Jake said. And that is why you can live in places that would kill us? Yes. And that is why you do dangerous things for fun? Yes, Zixtel's crystal body was making very soft, worried sounds. Professor Morrison, I think we need to understand much more about humans and Earth. What we are learning is very different from anything we know about other species. I agree, Jake said. Next class, we will explore this topic much more deeply. I think you will find the full truth about humanity even more surprising than what you have learned today. As the students filed out of the classroom, Jake heard them talking quietly among themselves in their various languages. He caught fragments of their conversations, and most of them seemed to be variations of the same theme. Humans were either the bravest species in the galaxy, or the most dangerous, or both. Jake looked at his human students, who were packing up their things. Well, Amy said, I think we broke their minds a little bit. Wait until they learn the rest of it, Steve said with a grin. The rest of what? Lisa asked. Wait until they learn that we are not just survivors of a death world, Jake said quietly. Wait until they learn what surviving a death world actually turned us into. Jake Morrison arrived at his classroom to find something unusual. His alien students were already there, but they were not sitting in their usual seats. Instead, they had moved their chairs into a circle around the human students. Amy, Steve, and Lisa were sitting in the middle, looking a bit surprised but amused. Good morning, everyone, Jake said as he set down his teaching materials. I see you have rearranged the classroom. Zixtal's crystal body chimed softly as she turned toward him. Professor Morrison, we have been talking since our last class. We have many questions about humans and Earth. We hope you do not mind, but we would like to have a discussion instead of regular lessons today. Jake looked around at his students. The alien faces showed curiosity, worry, and something that looked like fear. He could see they had been thinking hard about everything they had learned. Of course, Jake said. What would you like to know? Quen, the feathered aviarn student, spoke first. Her green feathers were still standing up, showing she was nervous. We have been researching human activities on the Galactic Information Network. We found something very disturbing. She activated her personal tablet and images appeared on the wall display. The pictures showed humans doing various activities: rock climbing, deep sea diving, skiing down mountains, and jumping out of aircraft with parachutes. We do not understand why humans do these things, Quen continued. According to our research, these activities serve no purpose for survival. They do not provide food, shelter, or safety. In fact, they seem designed to put humans in danger. Amy Chun laughed. Those are just hobbies. People do them for fun and excitement. Fun? Gloop's blue jelly body rippled with confusion. You find danger fun? Some of us do, Steve Rodriguez sighed. I love rock climbing. There is something amazing about using your strength and skill to climb up a cliff face. But you could fall and die, Teak pointed out, clicking nervously. That is part of what makes it exciting, Steve replied. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of complete bewilderment. Zixtal spoke next. We also researched human sports. We found that many of your games involve people trying to hurt each other. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts, American football. Why do humans choose to fight each other for entertainment? Lisa Park thought for a moment before answering. It is not really about hurting each other. It is about testing your limits, proving your strength, and pushing yourself to be better. But people get injured in these sports, Tak said. Sometimes. Lisa agreed. But the risk is part of the appeal. Overcoming that risk makes you stronger. Jake decided to join the conversation. What you are seeing is something that makes humans different from most other species. We do not just try to avoid danger. We actively seek out challenges. But why? Gloop asked, his body turning a confused purple color. Because challenges make us grow, Amy explained. When you face something difficult and overcome it, you become stronger and more confident. Quen's feathers rustled as she pulled up more information on her tablet. We found records of human explorers who went to the most dangerous places on Earth. They climbed the highest mountains, crossed the hottest deserts, and sailed across stormy oceans. Many of them died trying. Why did they do this? Because the mountains were there, Steve said with a grin. That is not an answer, Zixtal said, her crystal body making frustrated sounds. Jake stepped forward. Actually, it is a very human answer. We explore dangerous places because they exist and because no one has been there before. We have a need to push boundaries and go beyond what others think is possible. Even if it kills you? Gloop asked. Even if it kills us, Jake confirmed. The alien student sat in shocked silence for a moment. Then Tick spoke up. Professor Morrison, we researched human history. We found that humans have always lived with danger, but you have also created dangers that did not exist before. What do you mean? Jake asked. Wars, Tak said simply. Humans fight each other constantly. According to our research, there has not been a single year in recorded human history when there was not a war happening somewhere on Earth. The alien students looked at the human students with new concern. On their worlds, the concept of war was almost unknown. Most alien species had achieved peace thousands of years before they reached space. That is true, Amy said quietly. Humans do fight each other. But we also work together when we face bigger threats. We are complicated, Steve added. We can be enemies one day and allies the next, but why fight at all? Zixtal asked, why not just live in peace like other species? Jake thought carefully about how to answer this question. Because conflict, like other challenges, makes us stronger. When humans face problems, we develop new technologies, new strategies, and new ways of thinking. Many of our greatest inventions came from trying to solve problems created by wars or natural disasters, Lisa said. Medicine, communication technology, transportation, space travel, all of these advanced faster because we needed solutions to dangerous problems. So you are saying that danger makes humans more advanced? Quen asked. In a way, yes, Jake replied. Every challenge forces us to innovate and adapt. Gloop's body was now flashing between several colors rapidly. This is very disturbing. We researched Earth's history and found that your planet has tried to kill all life many times. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, diseases. Each time, most species died. But humans survived, Zixtal added. How? We learned to adapt, Amy said. When the climate changed, we learned to make better tools and clothing. When disasters struck, we learned to work together and help each other. We also learned to think ahead, Steve said. We started preparing for disasters before they happened. We built stronger shelters, stored food for emergencies, and developed ways to communicate across long distances. Jake pulled up some historical data on the wall display. Humans have survived multiple extinction events that would have wiped out most other species. Each time, we came back stronger and more prepared. The images showed the recovery of human civilization after various disasters. The alien students watched in amazement as they saw how quickly humans rebuilt after each catastrophe. But how do you live with the constant fear? Quen asked. How do you function knowing that disaster could strike at any moment? We do not live in fear, Lisa said. We live with awareness. We know bad things can happen, so we prepare for them. But we do not let the possibility of danger stop us from living our lives. In fact, Amy added, knowing that life is dangerous makes it more precious to us. We value each day because we know it might be our last. Teak and Tak clicked to each other in their native language for a moment. Then Teak spoke to the group. We are beginning to understand something. Other species wait for their worlds to become safe before they advance. But humans advance because their world is dangerous. Exactly, Jake said. Most species develop space travel as a luxury after they have solved all their problems. Humans developed space travel as a necessity while we were still dealing with problems. So you reached for the stars not because you had conquered your world, but because you needed an escape from it? Zixtal asked. Partly, Jake replied. But also because we needed more resources, more space, and more opportunities? Earth taught us that putting all your eggs in one basket is dangerous. Eggs in one basket? Gloop asked, confused. It is a human saying, Lisa explained. It means not putting all your valuable things in one place, because if something bad happens to that place, you lose everything. So humans spread to space to make sure the species would survive even if Earth was destroyed? Quen asked. That was part of it, Steve said. But we also went to space because it was there, and because it was the ultimate challenge. The alien students sat quietly for a moment, processing this information. Finally, Zixtal spoke again. Professor Morrison, we are beginning to understand that humans are very different from other species. But we still do not understand how you can be so calm about living with constant danger. Jake smiled. Because we have learned something that other species have not had to learn. What is that? Gloop asked. We have learned that you cannot eliminate danger from life. You can only learn to be stronger than the danger. And how do you become stronger than danger? Tak asked. By facing it, Amy said simply. Every time you survive something difficult, you become a little bit stronger. Every time you overcome a challenge, you become more confident that you can overcome the next one. So humans actively seek out challenges to make themselves stronger? Zixtal asked. Yes, Jake replied. And after millions of years of doing this, we have become very good at it. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of awe and concern. They were beginning to understand that humans were not just another species that happened to survive a dangerous world. Humans were something entirely different, something that had been shaped by danger into something new. Professor Morrison, Quen said quietly, what exactly did all this danger and challenge turn humans into? Jake looked at his human students, then back at the alien students. That is a very good question. And the answer might be the most important thing you learned in this class. The room was completely silent as everyone waited for him to continue. The answer is that humans did not just survive on a death world. The silence in the classroom stretched for long moments after Jake's last statement. The alien students stared at him with expressions of growing alarm. Zixtal's crystal body had stopped making its usual musical sounds. Gloop's blue jelly form had turned a deep, worried purple. Even the clicking twins had stopped their constant soft chittering. Finally, Tick broke the silence. His voice was higher than usual, showing his nervousness. Professor Morrison, you said that humans are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever seen, but humans seem so normal to us. Jake looked at Amy, Steve, and Lisa. They nodded at him, understanding that this was the moment to reveal the full truth. That is exactly the problem, Jake said quietly. Humans seem normal to you because you do not understand what normal means for a species that evolved on a death world. He activated the wall display and pulled up comparative data between Earth and other coalition worlds. The information filled the screen in neat charts and graphs. Let me ask you all a question, Jake continued. When did your species achieve interstellar space travel? Zixtal answered first. The Vorthek achieved faster-than-light travel 2,847. Years ago, after our world had been at complete peace for over 10,000 years, the Hydroxians reached the stars 1,923 years ago, Gloop added. We had no wars or natural disasters for 8,000 years before that. Zephyrians achieved spaceflight 3,156 years ago, Tak said. Our world had been stable and peaceful for 12,000 years. Jake nodded and typed numbers into his tablet. Now, according to the Coalition database, when did humans achieve interstellar travel? He pulled up Earth's timeline on the display. The alien students stared at the information in shock. Humans achieved faster-than-light travel just 127 years ago, Jake said. And according to this timeline, Earth was experiencing wars, natural disasters, climate change, disease outbreaks, and resource conflicts right up until the moment humans left their planet. Quen's feathers stood up completely. That is impossible. No species can develop advanced technology while dealing with such chaos. But humans did, Amy said calmly. We developed space technology while our planet was still trying to kill us. Steve pulled up more data on his tablet. In the year humans first reached another star system, Earth was dealing with 3 major wars, 2 natural disasters, a disease, pandemic, and a climate crisis. How? Gloop whispered, his body now flashing between purple and orange. How can anyone think clearly enough to invent space travel while fighting for survival? Because fighting for survival is exactly what made us so good at inventing things, Lisa explained. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the room. Every other species in the galaxy had the luxury of time. Your worlds became peaceful, and then you spent thousands of years slowly developing technology in safe, controlled conditions. Yes, Zixtal said, that is the normal way. But humans never had that luxury, Jake continued. We had to solve problems quickly or we would die. We had to innovate under pressure. We had to make discoveries while running from predators, hiding from storms, and fighting wars. Amy stood up next to Jake. Every human invention came from trying to solve a survival problem. We invented fire because we were cold. We invented weapons because we were hunted. We invented medicine because we were sick. We invented communication technology because we needed to coordinate during disasters. But that means, Teak said slowly, that humans developed all their technology as survival tools. Exactly, Steve said. While other species developed technology for exploration and discovery, humans developed technology to stay alive. The alien students looked at each other with growing alarm. Jake could see they were beginning to understand the implications. Professor Morrison, Zixtel said, her voice barely audible, are you saying that human technology is designed for survival and conflict? Yes, Jake replied simply. And that humans learn to innovate while under extreme pressure? Yes. And that humans achieve space travel not as a luxury but as a necessity? Yes. Gloop's body was now changing colors so rapidly it looked like a light show. But that means humans are not explorers like us. You are ... Refugees, Lisa finished quietly. Humans went to space because we needed to escape our dying planet and find new resources. Every human space mission is essentially a survival mission. The alien students sat in stunned silence as this revelation sank in. Finally, Quen spoke. Up, her voice shaking. The Coalition database classifies humans as a peaceful exploration species, just like the rest of us. But you are saying this is wrong? Jake pulled up the official Coalition files on humanity. The database is wrong because the humans who first made contact with the Coalition did not want to scare anyone. They presented humanity as just another peaceful species that happened to come from a slightly dangerous world. But the truth is... Different? Tak asked. Much different, Amy said. The truth is that humans are a species that evolved for millions of years under constant threat. Every single human alive today is descended from the most successful survivors in Earth's history. Steve walked over to the display and pulled up human genetic and physical data. Look at human biology compared to other Coalition species. Humans heal faster from injuries. Humans can survive longer without food or water. Humans can adapt to extreme temperatures and toxic environments. Humans can function under stress levels that would paralyze most other species. Humans also think differently, Lisa added. We are always planning for disasters, looking for threats, and preparing for emergencies. What you call paranoia, we call survival instinct. Jake pulled up psychological profiles. Human brains are wired to detect danger, respond to threats, and solve problems under pressure. A human in a crisis situation becomes more focused and more capable, not less. Other species become paralyzed by fear when faced with danger, Amy explained. Humans become more alert and more effective. The alien students stared at the data in horror. Everything they thought they knew about humans was being turned upside down. So, when humans joined the Coalition, Zixtel said slowly, you were not peaceful explorers looking for knowledge. No, Jake said. We were survivors looking for new worlds to colonize in case Earth became completely uninhabitable. And when humans volunteer for dangerous missions, Gloop said, you are not being brave. You are just doing what comes naturally. Correct, Steve said. What other species consider extremely dangerous, humans consider moderately challenging. And when humans seem calm during emergencies, Quen said, it is because you are designed to handle emergencies. Yes, Lisa said. Humans actually perform better during crises than during peaceful times. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of pure terror. They were beginning to understand that they had been living and studying alongside a species that was fundamentally different from anything else in the galaxy. Professor Morrison, Tick said, his voice barely a whisper, what does this mean for the Coalition? What does it mean that humans are not what we thought they were? Jake looked around the room at his students. He could see the fear in their faces, but he could also see understanding beginning to dawn. It means, he said carefully, That the galaxy now contains a species that evolved to survive anything, overcome any obstacle, and adapt to any environment. A species that does not need perfect conditions to thrive, Amy added. A species that actually performs better under pressure, Steve said. A species that sees every problem as a challenge to overcome rather than an obstacle to avoid, Lisa concluded. The alien student sat in complete silence, processing this information. Finally, Zixtal spoke, her crystal body making soft, frightened sounds. Professor Morrison, are you telling us that humans are not just another member species of the Coalition? Jake paused, knowing that his next words would change everything. No, Zixtal. What I'm telling you is that humans are what happens when a death world spends millions of years trying to create the perfect survivor. And now those perfect survivors have learned to travel between the stars. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear the soft humming of the space station's life support systems. The question, he said quietly, is what the galaxy is going to do now that it knows what humans really are. 3 days passed before the next class session. Jake Morrison had given his students time to think about everything they had learned. When he arrived at the classroom, he found the alien students waiting for him again. But this time, something was different. They were not sitting in their usual circle. Instead, they had arranged their chairs in a formal pattern, like a council meeting. Zixtal sat in the center with the other alien students around her. The human students sat facing them, looking curious but calm. Jake could see that the alien students had been talking among themselves. Their body language showed they had made some kind of decision. "Good morning, everyone," Jake said as he set down his materials. "I can see you have something important to discuss." Zixtal stood up slowly. Her crystal body was making soft, serious sounds. "Professor Morrison, we have spent these past days researching everything we could find about human history, human culture, and human achievements." She activated the wall display, and it filled with data, charts, and images. The information was overwhelming in its scope. "We have discovered things that disturb us greatly," she continued. "We found that the Coalition database contains many errors about humanity." Gloop's blue jelly body rippled as he spoke next. "We found records that were hidden or classified. Records that show what humans have really accomplished since joining the Coalition." "What did you find?" Amy asked, though she looked like she already knew. Teak and Tack clicked to each other, then Teak spoke for both of them. "We found that humans have been involved in every major rescue mission in Coalition space for the past 50 years. We found that human ships are the only ones capable of operating in hazardous environments," Tack added. "We found that when other species encounter problems they cannot solve, they call for human assistance," Quen said, her feathers rustling nervously. Jake nodded slowly. "And what conclusions did you draw from this information?" Zixtal's crystal body chimed softly as she pulled up more data. "We concluded that humans are not just members of the Coalition. You are the Coalition's problem solvers." The display showed mission records, rescue operations, and emergency responses. In every case, human teams had been called in when the situation was too dangerous or too difficult for other species to handle. "We found records of the Kepler station disaster 5 years ago," Gloop said. "When the station's reactor failed and the environment became toxic, only human teams could enter the contaminated areas to make repairs." "We found records of the vegan colony crisis," Quen added. "When the colonists were trapped by predators, human soldiers went in to rescue them." "We found records of the asteroid mining accident at Proxima," Tig said. "When the miners were trapped in collapsed tunnels, human rescue teams went down to save them. In every case," Tack concluded, "humans volunteered for missions that other species considered suicide." Lisa Park looked at her fellow humans, then back at the alien students. "And in every case, the humans came back alive with the mission completed." "That is what disturbs us most," Zixtal said quietly. "Humans do not just survive impossible situations. You succeed in them." Jake walked to the center of the room. "What you have discovered is the truth about humanity's role in the galaxy. We are not explorers or diplomats or scientists, though we can do those things. We are the species others call when everything else has failed. But why? Gloop asked, his body turning a confused purple. Why do humans always volunteer for the most dangerous missions? Steve Rodriguez grinned. Because they are the most interesting. Missions. Because they are the missions that matter most, Amy added. Because someone has to do them, and we are the only ones who can? Lisa said simply. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of awe and fear. They were beginning to understand the full implications of what they had learned. Professor Morrison, Zixtel said, her voice very quiet, we have one more discovery to share. She activated a new display showing recent coalition military records. We found classified information about the border conflicts with the destroyer species. Jake's expression became serious. The destroyers were a hostile alien race that had been attacking coalition worlds for the past 2 years. Most of the alien students did not know much about them, since the information was kept classified to prevent panic. What did you find? Jake asked. We found that the coalition has lost 12 battles against the destroyers, Teak said. Coalition ships cannot match their technology or their tactics. But we also found that humans have fought the destroyers 6 times, Tak added. And humans have won all 6 battles. The room went completely silent. Even the human students looked surprised by this information. How is this possible? Quen asked. The destroyers have superior weapons and ships. Because, Amy said slowly, the destroyers evolved on a peaceful world, just like the rest of you. They developed powerful technology, but they do not know how to fight against someone who fights back. Humans know how to fight, Steve said. We have been fighting for millions of years. Fighting predators, fighting disasters, fighting each other, fighting our own planet. The destroyers expect their enemies to be logical and predictable, Lisa explained. But humans are not logical when we fight. We are creative, unpredictable, and willing to take risks that no sane species would consider. Jake pulled up tactical reports on the display. In the first battle against the destroyers, the human commander did something that shocked both sides. When his ship was losing, he rammed it directly into the enemy flagship. That destroyed both ships, Gloop said, horrified. Yes, Jake said. But it also convinced the destroyers that humans were too dangerous to fight directly. Since then, they have avoided human-controlled space. The alien students stared at this information in stunned silence. Finally, Zixtel spoke. So humans are not just survivors and problem solvers, you are also warriors. When we need to be, Amy said, but we prefer to be builders and healers, Steve added. We only fight when we have to protect ourselves or others. The difference, Lisa said, is that we are very good at fighting when we need to be. Jake looked around the room at all his students, both alien and human. What you have learned over the past few weeks is the truth about humanity. We are not the peaceful explorers we pretended to be when we first joined the coalition. Then what are you? Quen asked. We are what happens when a death world spends 4 billion years trying to create the ultimate survivor, Jake said. We are the species that refuse to give up, no matter how many times our planet tried to kill us. We are the species that turned every disaster into a learning experience, Amy added. We are the species that made tools out of our enemies' teeth. And built cities on the graves of extinct predators, Steve said. We are the species that looked at a hostile universe and decided to make it our home. Lisa concluded. The alien students sat in complete silence, processing everything they had learned. The full truth about humanity was almost too much to comprehend. Finally, Zixtel stood up again. Her crystal body was making soft, odd sounds. Professor Morrison, we understand now why Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. But we also understand why that classification is wrong. How is it wrong? Jake asked. Because Earth is not a death world, she said quietly. Earth is a warrior factory, and humans are its greatest creation. Gloop's body rippled with nervous energy. The question now is what this means for the rest of us. It means, Jake said, that the galaxy is a much safer place than it was before humans arrived. Because now, when something truly dangerous threatens peaceful species, there is someone who can fight it. And it means, Amy added, that you never have to face the worst dangers alone. Humans will always volunteer to stand between you and anything that wants to hurt you, even if it costs us our lives? Tick asked. Especially if it costs us our lives, Steve said with a grin. That is when it gets really interesting. The alien students looked at their human classmates with new understanding. These were not just fellow students or colleagues. These were representatives of a species that had been forged in the fires of the most hostile world in the galaxy, and who had emerged as something unprecedented in galactic history. So when people ask why Earth is a death world, Zixtel said, finally, the answer is not that it is dangerous to life. What is the answer? Jake asked. The answer is that Earth is dangerous to everything that threatens life, she replied, because that is what it created humans to be. Jake smiled as he looked around the room one last time. His students, both alien and human, had learned the most important lesson of the semester. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were the galaxy's insurance policy against anything that would try to destroy the peace that other species had worked so hard to build, and that was a truth that would change everything.